And we're live. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Your man James here, aka Sequential Treasures himself, back for another one of our little chats here for sequential thinking theme. Today's topic is going to be on the actual purpose of entertainment and what it's all about, why we have it, and how woke politics kind of really is antithetical to what entertainment is supposed to be. Now, I think we all can agree no matter what your preference of entertainment is, be it comics or movies or sports or knitting, whatever you do for entertainment and relaxation, the whole main purpose of it is to get away from politics, to get away from all the hubbub of societal concerns and people trying to tell you what to think, what to feel, what to do. It's meant as an escape from all of that. And so when you inject woke politics into it, you pretty much are just erasing the very premise of what entertainment is supposed to be. And we're going to get into this because I'm going to show you some stuff, again, some stuff from Twitter as well as some other stuff that's going to spotlight exactly, why that is and how wrong it is when you put woke politics into entertainment to sort of say it's meant to do that, and it really isn't. A lot of people will tell you that there've been politics in entertainment before, and that's true, but there's a difference between sort of like a moral lesson and evoking certain political viewpoints meant to denigrate or to be divisive towards others. And I think that's the main difference that we're going to be seeing here today. So we're going to get into doing some stuff here. And let's see, we'll just bring up the first bit here. Okay, and here we go. See here we have some Twitter posting from one of our favorite wokeists, as I call them. Kurt Busiek resists here. Resists, I'm not sure what he's really resisting, reality, or truth. I'm not sure, but whatever he's resisting, he makes sure he gets those politics in. And this is kind of what got all this going for me. And so we'll just start out here with what he says. I pointed out earlier that comics, like virtually any storytelling medium, have never been politics free, and an angry comic skater responded, "Keep losing my money then," which is dumb on several fronts. First, the comic industry isn't actually losing money. They're figuring out how to deal with changing sales and distribution patterns, but they're making the bucks. I mean, there we go. I mean, even the much blathered claim that lots of comic stores turned out to closed turned out to be nonsense when compared to how many comic stores had opened in the same time period. But it seems to be the basic tenet of the Gators that entertainment should be inoffensive, as they flock to support creators who are deliberately offensive to people they don't like. In their actions in doing that show more truth than their statements, as actions usually do. Now, the thing he's missing on all this, not just with Comicsgate, but pretty much I'll say the term I'll use for it is normies. That's the word that a lot of us in the geek community use for people who aren't diehards of a certain medium or a certain property. You're known as normies. You're just a normal person who is looking for entertainment to escape from, again, from politics and the doldrums of life around you. And that's the point. Now, he's right that there never been politics free, but again, as I said before, there's a certain type of politics that I think is being pushed a lot more today than in times past. Moral lessons, little morality tales, you could say, for example, the Twilight Zone television series, just to take an easy example, is filled with politics, but it never told you what to think. It never castigated you if you didn't believe or follow the type of morality it was espousing in those stories. And basically, at the bottom line of it all, even though there were some political themes in some of that stuff, it was meant to entertain. It was always meant to make you think, to make you feel, to help you escapism. And that's more what Comicsgate and again normies are looking for in their entertainment. When it says politics free, I don't think they mean absolutely positively no politics. What it's talking about is a certain kind of politics. And like I said, we're going to get into that, the woke politics, the politics of identity politics, the politics of divisiveness, the politics of victimhood. These are the ones that people don't want to see. And it's easy to see why they don't want that. And he just brings up so many fallacies here, about the comic shops closing. Actually, there are more shops closing than opening. And, again, define comic shop. Are we talking about just who has an account with the distributor? I mean, there are plenty of stores that maybe have a little spot in the back where comics are, but they're not a comic book shop. They're selling a lot of other stuff that has nothing at all to do with comics in any way, shape, or form. Now, they have an account with the comic distributor, the Diamond, but does that make them a comic book shop? So how can you really say for sure that more shops are opening, especially when you're someone like me who's actually talked to comic book sellers, like vendors at conventions and things like that, and a lot of them are saying that the new stuff doesn't move. Modern comics don't sell, not just as well as stuff in the past, but even at all in some cases. They'll order copies and nothing moves. We're talking inches deep stacks on shelves of new books that aren't moving. And so he really is being disingenuous with how he approaches this. But then again, I'm not surprised, because Kurt Busiek is one of the wokerati in comics, so it's no real surprise that he would do this. He's one of the types who his own timelines on Facebook and Twitter are filled with political stuff, and like I said, not just your morality play type stuff, but like hatred of the president, hatred of conservative, hatred of anybody who doesn't think like him politically. It's filled with that, and he's not alone. He is hardly some atypical extreme version of something that doesn't exist. He's very much typical. There are a lot of creators who are like this. And it's really damaging not just their brand, but the companies, the shops, the very work itself. Entertainment itself is being damaged with all of this wokeness that they want to inject. And it's something that really needs to be addressed, I think. Continuing, the road to success is not about being inoffensive. Inoffensive things fail plenty, while offensive things often thrive. Solving, engaging, gripping. It doesn't matter if you offend some people, as long as you attract enough other people. Now, see, right here, we get to the heart of it. Yes, this is absolutely true. Inoffensive isn't what the Comicsgate folk or normies want. They just want something that is engaging and something that is, gripping, something that is, entertaining. That's what we want. And that's what you have to do, because even if your entertainment does hurt somebody's butthurt feelings somewhere on some people, as long as you get enough of the normies in who say, hey, I don't care about that. I like this because it helped me get my mind off my troubles for a while. That's what you want. But again, as I said, with the comic shops closing, there's inches deep stacks of new books that aren't moving. And it's not moving because, not so much because they're trying to be inoffensive, but because they're pushing a narrative and an agenda and a woke political message that is not involving, that is not engaging, that is not gripping. And the sales numbers prove this. Again, we've talked about this before in some of our past discussions here. Sales numbers, dollar units are down 4 years in a row. Units are down 4 years in a row, all because of this wokeness. And he brought up how some people in Comicsgate will gravitate towards creators who are quote unquote offensive. Well, again, that brings it back to the entertainment point. I'm sure who he's trying to reference with that would be someone like Ethan Van Sciver, who Ethan is definitely what you would not call politically correct, not in the least. I've often told people in the past many times he's sort of the Howard Stern of comics. And once you understand that about him, you can either choose to acknowledge that and roll with it, or you can just say, well, that's just not my cup of tea, and move on. That would be the appropriate response. But then you got guys like Kurt Busiek who won't just move on, because what Ethan does flies in the face of what they're trying to do, and that's why he has to be destroyed. That's why they have to attack him. That's why they have to do to try to denigrate him in every way they can, because to allow him to exist stands in the way of what they ultimately are trying to do. And it isn't entertain. It's to indoctrinate. It's to make people think and believe a certain way. And to them, the comics are just a delivery vehicle for their politics. And again, that's what's so wrong about a lot of this. It's not gripping, it's not engaging, it's just divisive. Continuing. If you have an audience that's excited about what you do, and the entire membership of 1 million moms is picketing it as fast as she can go, congratulations, you're good. If you make your project less offensive to avoid chasing Mrs. 1 million moms off, you're likely lose a lot more people who'd have liked it. Well, see, again, this sort of cuts both ways, because these, the very thing he's saying, again, it's technically true. We all know controversy can help promote something in a way that all the positive reviews and word of mouth could never do. But again, it's they do the very same thing themselves. A Kurt Busiek will attack people whose work offends him, because he doesn't care about whether it will help them or not, or whether it will, make more people gravitate to it or not. His thing is I want this stopped. Again, that's how it is with all activists. See, and that's another thing too, is a lot of these woke garage comic creators are sort of like part-time activists, and that's why it's so infused in their work, because they're trying to advocate and get you to believe what they want you to believe. They want you to follow these types of rules, these types of politics. And if you don't, well, then you are a problem to them, and you must be either silenced or destroyed. This is what we see time and again. Continuing. As noted, DC had a hit with Superman when Superman took a stand. Captain America took a stand. Marvel took stands for various things over the years. There were people who disagreed with every single one of those stands. Yes, there were. But again, the difference is what was the stand over? Was it over a moral? Was it over don't murder people, don't steal from people, don't, go out of your way to hurt others? I mean, those are like sort of universal morals that pretty much anybody here in the West, in the Western culture would agree is, well, yeah, you shouldn't do those things. We're all pretty much in agreement of that. That's not really taking much of a stand. To me, what he's talking about is more like taking a stand for, a certain ideology, an ideology that tells you have to believe certain things. And that's what they do. And they push these narratives that are, again, like I said, are harmful to what entertainment is supposed to be. It destroys what entertainment is supposed to be, because you're so focused on making sure you push that agenda that all other considerations, as he told himself, being gripping and engaging, comes second, because it's, I got to get the narrative out. That's what matters. And see, this is what we're seeing in so much of the work today. But rather than try to be viewpoint free, Marvel and DC knew they were winning over readers, even if there were other people who weren't interested. Being inoffensive is not the goal. Being engaging is. Yes, once again, technically he's correct. That is exactly the goal. That is the goal of entertainment. Not to be inoffensive, to be engaging, to grab your attention, to make you, care about it in a way that matters to you because it entertains you. That's the whole purpose. But again, what he's leaving out of all this, the context that is not being, put in here, is what made it engaging. Was it the quote unquote moral politics that were being pushed, or was it great artistry with characters you cared about, with characters who seemed human, with characters who, could feel like, the person next door, or with characters who were larger than life. These were the facets that actually are what engaged people. It wasn't so much the politics as such as they were that were being promoted. That's not what got people interested. It was the characters and their fantastic powers and their adventures, and how they live and love and all these things. All the humanity side of things. That's what drew them in. That's what engaged them. It wasn't the politics that did so. So taking stands and not being politics free. That isn't what engaged people with Marvel and DC back in the day. That's absolutely not what did it, and again, so he's being very disingenuous in how he's approaching this. He's telling you technically the correct things, but he's leaving out the context of why it's failing today to do so. And that's because he knows that it's the wokeness of his politics. It's the forcing of these agendas down the throats of the consumers and the readers that is driving them away, that is keeping them away. And, he can't admit to that, because to admit to that he would have to say his whole political viewpoint, his whole narratives are all wrong. And that's the one thing these activist-minded creators will never do. And there's certainly plenty of discussion to be had about how to make stories more engaging. And we talk about that stuff a lot, except they really don't. Continuing. But leave out any politics because I didn't notice all the politics that were there when I was 10 is not about being engaging. Excite an audience. It's about the audience you attract, so go get them. Yes, it is about the audience. And so if the audience is telling you that, they didn't notice the sort of morality politics that were done in comics in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s, and now today, it's so in their face that they can't seem to get away from it, that it's being rammed down their throats. I would think that, then, you're not exciting your audience then, are you? You're not doing, you're not attracting them, and that's the whole point. You're driving them away with that stuff. But again, you can't admit to this, because to admit to that would mean, well, then I am incorrect. And guys like this never admit when they're incorrect, because to them that's almost a fate worse than death. But you can attract an audience. Again, I'll bring up again Ethan Van Sciver. He has attracted an audience. His latest effort, his second Cyberfrog book, Wreck Planet, just launched on Indiegogo a few days ago, and he's already near $400,000 raised for this book, with I think like around 3,100 backers. And it's still got 4 weeks to go before the Indiegogo is over. So I mean, right there, he's attracting an audience. And are there politics in his book, again, of morality perhaps? Yeah, there are. But is there the woke politics of shoving it down your throat, telling you have to believe this, and if you don't believe this, you're a bigot? No, there's none of that in there. And again, that's what people are saying when they're saying leave out the politics. They're not saying leave out morals or leave out the kind of like human interactions that come of that. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about specific ideological viewpoints that are dismissive, divisive, and destructive. Calling someone a bigot because, for example, let's just say they believe in border security, and say, well, that makes you a xenophobic bigot, and then writing a story where anybody who espouses, the sovereignty of the nation, saying we need to have a strong border that protects us from people who just want to come in here and potentially do harm, and we need to know who's coming in and who isn't, and then make those people out to be quote unquote like Nazis. Well, that's going to be insulting to the readers. That's going to be insulting to the audience. They don't want to be told that they're bigots just because they believe borders actually matter. They don't want that, and they didn't used to do that. I don't recall that being done in 60s, 70s, 80s comics. I mean, I grew up reading them in the 80s. I never saw anything like that. Creators may not have always agreed with the political views of a day, but they didn't try to force you to believe that if you didn't think their way, you're somehow evil. And that's what we're seeing today in these woke politics that are being injected in the entertainment today, and it's destroying the industry. And then we get to our other good friend here, the other wokest, Ron Mars, who, someone here brings up a good point, saying, I've been buying comics since 1985-ish. I have never seen a worse market, including the 90s bust. The number of readers is not going up, even though population is. DC is in trouble. Marvel is flooding the market with unsellable books. People denying both are dishonest. The Kryptonaut here he's pretty much on the money. That's what all the numbers are showing in the direct market. Everything he said is absolutely true. But then again, see, once again, Ron Mars here has to deflect. They got to deflect away, because if they don't, if they address the truth, it bespeaks very poorly of them. And so he goes, does it occur to you that Marvel and DC are not the whole of the industry? The direct market is not the only market. The places people buy comics, as well as the kinds of people who buy comics, are evolving. That's why sales records are being set, except they're not being set. He shows this chart here, see North American sales across time, but that includes a lot of other things. It's not just the direct market, which is dying on the vine. This is what Kryptonaut is talking about. And, he says Marvel and DC are not the whole industry. No, they aren't. But when it comes to mainstream American comics, and especially superhero comics, yeah, they kind of are that market. So, if he wants to say that because manga is selling well in the States, or because, there's some other types of, small indie, books that somehow become massive successes, that somehow it offsets what the Kryptonaut is saying, he's wrong. I mean, again, there are stores closing left and right. In the direct market, dollar shares are down, unit numbers are down for 4 years straight. So his little graph here of bringing in all these other outlets besides the direct market to try to offset and say, oh, well, no, things aren't so bad. Well, things may not be bad in some macro level thing, but we're going to the micro level of the direct market of American superhero comics. Yeah, things are really, really bad. And, Ron Mars knows this. I'm sure he's not so stupid to not know this. That's why he qualifies and tells you, oh, don't just pay attention to Marvel and DC. Don't just pay attention to the direct market. Never mind that these metrics are what many people think of when they think of the comic book industry in general. He wants you to not think of that, because if you do look at those numbers, then you'll see that his little graph here is a lie. It's not telling you the story that people are talking about. He's sort of sidestepping that to get you to believe something else that doesn't make it look so bad. And again, it's just another tactic of the activist minds who do these kinds of things. So again, we got some more with Kryptonaut here. He goes, higher prices, lower sales unit numbers. Money does not indicate unit sales. Again, selling to a wider audience is great. That is not a problem. The problem is that the new generation doesn't seem to be interested in buying comics as much as wearing the t-shirt. Again, Kryptonaut, totally on point. They are, they talk about trying to say the numbers aren't as bad. Well, when they're raising cover prices on books, when they're going out and, charging, $5, $7, $10 a book to offset the loss of units. They're not selling the volume that they sold, so we'll just charge more to the suckers who are still buying, and just charge them out the wazoo to make up for those lost people we've driven away. It's telling. And again, and even with that, they're not getting some huge, increase in the dollars. I mean, again, like I said, in the last half of the year of 2019, they marked a 2% increase with all these things they've done, all these gimmicks, all these cover price raisings, everything. They're rebooting constantly with number ones to get a bump in sales. All these things they did, 2% in dollars, while the units continued to decline. So you're selling less books, but yet somehow got a little tiny bit more money. How did you do that? You raised all the prices and did all these gimmicks to pump up the numbers a little bit. But that's a short-term game at best. That's not going to save the industry. You're not going to charge $10 a comic and then, keep an industry viable that way. But again, once again, Mars has to deflect. Well, somebody certainly seems to be buying a lot of Ryan's books, and DC's continued investment in young adult original graphic novels is not because people aren't reading them. Again, not being snarky, but asking for your evidence that there are less readers. Well, again, the numbers show it. The numbers in the direct market show there are less people reading the mainstream superhero books than ever before. No one is buying them. No one is reading them. Stores are going out of business and closing because they got inches deep stacks on their shelves of these books that never move. And, again, just the disingenuousness of people like Ron Mars and even Kurt Busiek and all these other wokeratis, it just bespeaks to the problem. They're trying to blindside you into thinking that everything is just fine when it really is not. The mainstream direct market comic book, industry is in trouble. These people should be afraid. And I think they are. I do think they are afraid. That's why they're trying so hard to tell people like Kryptonite here or myself or anyone who's actually been paying attention that no, don't believe your lying eyes, believe what we're telling you, because they don't want you to believe the truth, that things are not good. Because if it's true things aren't good, then the only people to blame for that are them. Guys like Ron Mars, guys like Kurt Busiek, people like our people we've shown in the past, like Stephanie Cook and, Tess Fowler and, David Brothers and Tom Brevoort, all these people at the top, who are just doing things to drive the established consumer base for the direct market, mainstream superhero comics away, just driving them away in droves, and they did this thinking they would get a new audience. Oh, we'll throw over this audience, but we'll bring in a new one. And as they're seeing now with these numbers, that didn't happen. They drove away the old audience, but they really didn't bring in much of a new audience, because the new audience who they supposedly were reaching for, they may say they like these woke politics and everything, but they're not going to spend money to buy it. They don't care about that because, again, they're activist-minded types. These are people who don't care about, entertainment for escapism. They want to turn escapism into no escapism because they want the politics in your face constantly, and that's what they've done, and that's why these books don't move. And it's gotten so infested. I'm not even sure if there's a way to save the direct market anymore. I used to think we could do that, but now I don't know. It's really kind of fallen apart. And then here we go with Busiek once again, bringing in something, sort of deflecting it and sort of, again, being disingenuous by leaving out certain contexts in what he says. Someone here posted a picture of Cap punching, a Japanese character, the classic slap a Jap, image from World War II. And he goes, this guy Solly goes, the line between art and story versus propaganda and social education is really what's at question here. Should you, as an artist, use Spider-Man to socially educate people? Because that is solely and always operating as a propagandist, which is a pretty slippery slope. And that's true. Solly is correct. That's exactly what's going on in much of the mainstream, American superhero comics today. Is they're not really creating, as he said, art and story, which I would say translation is entertainment. They're not creating entertainment. They're more interested in creating propaganda to push certain narratives, to push certain ideologies that they want you and they want, other people to believe and to follow. And this is a method of trying to indoctrinate people into that, as he put it, socially educating them. And that was never what comics, especially American super comics, that's never what they were meant to be, to socially educate. They weren't meant for that. Social education should come from the family. It should come from, being involved in organizations and the community. That's where all that should come from. Not from an entertainment that is meant to get your mind off of politics. But again, Busiek once again sidesteps it all and tries to brush it off by taking out all context in what he says, where he goes, Spider-Man's ethos is, with great power comes great responsibility, or metaphorically, that any level of power comes with concomitant responsibility. That's political, and it's baked right in. But you seem to be missing the be interesting part when you assume that any story with politics built in is nothing but propaganda. That's nonsense. And the terms of Marvel feeling like the world outside your window plus super folks, it's a non sequitur, except it's not a non sequitur. That is what Marvel was trying to be. At least historically, that's what they've tried to be. The world outside your window with people with superpowers. And so if you're going to do that, you have to be, understanding that, everybody doesn't all believe the same political viewpoint. And I love how he tries to take Spider-Man's, ethos of, with great power, there must come great responsibility. Because that goes back to what I was saying very, very much at the very start of this, the whole moral lessons. The whole reason Spider-Man believes that now is because he ignored the opportunity, the chance to stop someone who he knew was doing wrong, and it ended up costing him in the end. It's a thing about like how when we see someone doing something wrong, and if we can help, we should, because that helps benefit not just society, but potentially ourselves at some point. That's the whole moral of the story, and that's the whole driver of his mythos. But that's a very different thing than, say, modern third wave feminism ideology that says things like, oh, I don't know, that all, some women in that movement say things like all, intimate relations between men and women, including that of man and wife, is rape. You don't have to believe me and don't take my word. Just look it up yourself. You'll find all kinds of feminists who have said things like this, or that, only women can be raped. You cannot rape a man, except of course we know that isn't true either. There's plenty of stories about, what time is it? About time for another female teacher to have sex with one of her male students, isn't it? And that's called statutory rape. So yes, women can rape too, but again, that's not the narrative that is pushed by modern third wave feminist ideology. And see, these are the types of things that are being injected into books today. That type of thing, very specific, very targeted, very divisive. It's not just a moral lesson of, you should help out when you can because it's the best way to help society and ultimately yourself. That's a grand moral that, we can all look at, like, don't murder people, don't steal from people. We can all agree on those types of morals. When we're talking about, like, saying, well, marital relations is no better than rape. Yeah, that's kind of extreme, and I don't think a lot of people believe that political viewpoint. But that's the viewpoints that are being espoused today. And these are the type of viewpoints that are being put into books, things like that. Anybody who has a critical opinion of somebody who is a person of color is automatically racist, except they're not racist. They're being critical of what they're saying or what they may be doing, but that doesn't mean that they're against them because of their race. They're against them because of what they have said or done. But yet, in the modern, woke politics, you're not allowed to criticize a person of color if you are not a person of color. So a white person cannot criticize a person of color, but yet a person of color has every right to criticize a white person. You see, divisive politics, the woke politics. This is what's being pushed in the comics today. Not with great power there must come great responsibility, but all white people are racists. That's the politics being pushed today, and that's what's so damaging to everything that's going on. And then again, here it is, more of what we talked about in our last one of being insulting to the reading base. So somebody says, this guy Chris Brady says, so pretty much all of Marvel and DC comics coming out now. Dude, be careful attacking them like that. Gail Simone is not going to like that. She will attack you. And so then Busiek, to be dismissive and denigrating and condescending to this person, goes, heh, I have no idea what this guy is talking about, but I think he thinks I'm saying Marvel comics are all propaganda rather than responding to someone who thinks that. I don't read as many Marvel books as I used to, but I've been reading more of late, and I must just be missing all this propaganda that they say is in them all. I read Gwen Stacy and missed it. I read Marvel 1, wrote some of it even, and missed it. Read a bunch of DC's Hawkman, missed it. Read some Batman, other stuff, missed it. Maybe it's just hard to spot this propaganda. And no, I don't think it is. I think the only reason he quote unquote missed it is because he agrees with it. See, that's the thing too. When it's the politics that you agree with, you're likely to miss it. You're not going to see it as much because you already agree that to you, that's just common sense. Oh, all white people are racist? Well, of course they are. Oh, all men are rapists? Oh, well, of course they are. Or potential rapists? Yeah, of course they are. That's just common sense. But except it's not common sense because, you know, all men are not potential rapists. All white people are not racist. You know, these are the things we're talking about, you know, and we're going to get here. I'm going to now show you just how deep this propaganda runs, you know, this propaganda that Kurt Busiek seems unable to find, and yet I was able to find plenty. In fact, I'm going to show you a good bit here, and just know that what I'm about to show you, this isn't the totality of it. This is just a sampling of what is going on. And we're going to start off here with the artwork itself has become politicized, you know, and here is a picture of Ms. Marvel, aka now known as Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. Now you can see here, it's a great, powerful image. You know, she's ripping through. You know, she's a strong woman, and but she's also very beautiful, and she's very attractive, and she's very, you know, very much has all the designated notes of femininity that most people would respond to and acknowledge. You know, her shape, her hair, you know, all of it. It says woman. You look at that and go, that is female. This is how she was drawn for 3.5 decades since her creation. And then just a few years ago, she became like this. This is her today as Captain Marvel. Do you notice any differences? Do you notice any changes between that and the previous image? Tell me, if I did not tell you that this was a female character, would you even have been able to know? Would you have even been able to tell, oh yeah, that's a female character? I don't think you would have. You see, you can see they are removing all the designations, you know, the visual cues that most normies would look for to know something is female. You know, this is what your boy Zach, aka Richard C. Meyer, aka the entity formerly known as Diversity in Comics, calls approved body type, where you try to remove any physical characteristics that would spotlight femininity in this character. She has to look a certain way so she can be sort of, in a way, genderless. And, you know, again, this is the politicization, the woke politicization of art. This is what you get when woke politics runs rampant in a creative industry like the comic book industry. And, you know, I have another example coming up here of this. This is Squirrel Girl. You know, this character was actually done as a one-off joke at one point, but she became popular enough, and she had she's grown, you know, she's grown so much that they gave her own series, several of them, in fact. And this is, for most of her published career, this is how the character looked. Again, you can see very much a feminine form. You can see all the visual cues that you would expect of a female character. The things that denote this is a woman. And then this is how she's drawn more recently. You know, this doesn't just not denote female. I'm not even sure this can denote human being. I mean, it is horribly drawn, for one. I mean, the proportions, the the line work, it's all awful. But again, the whole point of this is to remove anything that would denote femininity, anything that would be seen as classically female, and to make it as genderless as you can, to sort of blur that line. And this is what is done today in comics, visually removing certain attributes, certain characteristics to make all the characters sort of look the same and to make them all appear genderless, because as we all know, men are evil and women are not. But then again, there's the male gaze, and so if you do something that is obviously feminine and denotes female, well, that can be bad. So we have to remove all of that. And the way we do that is to make it genderless. And that's what you're seeing here. But the politics doesn't just stop with visual notations like this. Here we are right here, right in your face. This is a very infamous cover, to the series Mockingbird written by Chelsea Kane. This cover to me is the one of the most blatant, in your face, examples of woke politics ever. To have her wearing a shirt that says "Ask me about my feminist agenda," because Chelsea Kane herself is a hardcore third wave feminist. She is very much, in that vein of, man hatred type feminism. And again, this is just to throw it in your face. This was I believe this was the final issue of the series before they canceled it. And I think she did this. This really, I think, was pretty much done just out of spite. She knew the end was coming. And so to stick people in the eye, this is what she did. And she's since gone on to do other things over at Image, a book called Man Eaters, which is about young women who, when they have that special time of the month, transform into like werecat creatures and kill men. So I mean, if we had any question of where her political leanings lie on all of this, if this isn't blatant enough, I think we kind of get the picture of where this goes and what she does. But again, she isn't the only one guilty of this. Now we got here the female Thor character that they unleashed, where they made Jane Foster into Thor, saying she was Thor, not just carrying Thor's hammer and his powers, but she is Thor, as if Thor was a code name and not like Thor's actual name, the god of thunder, Thor, Odin's son. No, she is Thor. And again, you can see the woke politics coming out in what they're doing. I mean, just I'll read you through this here. Thor, are you kidding me? I'm supposed to call you Thor? Damn feminists are ruining everything. You want to be a chick superhero? Fine. Who the hell cares? But get your own identity. Thor's a dude, one of the last manly dudes still left. What'd you do? Send him to sensitivity training so he'd stop calling Earth girls wenches? And then the female Thor comes in here. I care not what you call me, absorbing man. Right there. So, I mean, but it's right there. So right there, you can see the writer has taken a complaint that came out from the audience. The audience is supposed to be gripping and engaging and entertaining. He took their words of saying, calling her Thor, and not just someone with the power of Thor, but actual I am Thor. And use the villain to express their viewpoint. And again, this is another time-honored tactic of comic book activists to take legitimate claims or legitimate points of view or moderate viewpoints and put them in the mouths of evil people to say, see, anyone who says this, well, they're just evil. You got the absorbing man calling trashing her because she's a woman. So he's, of course, a sexist. So anyone who have a problem with Thor being made into a woman, and, then they're just a sexist. But it doesn't end there. Because then here we go. She thou wishest to touch the hammer, be my guest. And she throws the hammer and kicks him out. And she goes, and messes him on. Then she comes to knock him out and goes, the little thought bubbles are where it really comes in. That's for saying feminist like it's a 4-letter word, creep. And also, for the robbing. You see right here, she didn't hit him so much because he's a villain, because he's, a thief and he's, trying to steal. No, it was because he was politically incorrect, because he saw feminist as a negative. Because she felt insulted that he said that about her. Never mind that what we just saw on the previous page. I don't care what you call me. But yet here it does, she does care. And in fact, that was her overriding reason to come up and give him a clock to the jaw. Not because he's a robber trying to steal from, honest, hardworking people or whatever. No. It's because he's a sexist and he said something derogatory to me and I don't like that. So I am now justified to hit him. See, again, bringing in the very kind of politics, the divisive politics that I talked about. But it doesn't even just end here. Then you've got Titania, who is the absorbing man's wife, if you can believe that. And, she knocks him out and then says, I ain't fighting no woman Thor, and neither is he. Not today, at least. I'm standing down out of respect for what you're doing. Can't have been easy for you. Hasn't been easy for me either. You see, she's siding with her along feminist political agenda lines. And it's so utterly ridiculous. If she's a villain, she's a robber, she's a thief, just like him, she isn't going to care if the person stopping her is a female or not. It's just, and this is a woman who I'll show you right here. Here's Titania from earlier in her career. Stupid. You shouldn't have thrown away that club. It might have given you a chance against me, Titania. Titania, the woman who killed Thor with her bare hands. That's what they'll call me. Here she is, just charging right in, hammering on Thor, the real Thor, the actual Thor Odin's son. Does this sound like a woman who would go, oh, gee, well, I guess if you were female, I guess I won't have to attack you, but it's okay because you're male? No, she's, if you know anything about the character's history, the whole reason she got power is because she felt like she was a wimp. And she didn't like feeling like a wimp. So she would go out and test herself against anybody. Her first appearances were in a book called The Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. And in that story, she nearly murdered She-Hulk with her bare hands. Now there's a female character. Where was the female camaraderie then? Where was the feminist uniting there? But see, that was in a time when comics were meant to be entertainment and villains did bad things like try to kill the hero no matter who or what they were. I'm committing the crimes, I'm the criminal, you're trying to stop me, therefore I must try and stop you. That's how it worked. But see, as you saw on the previous image, all of a sudden that's not how it works because woke politics. But it's not just female characters who are suffering in this way. Male characters are getting it too. Here's a great image here, Superman and Lois, and she comes up running to him. The world is waiting to hear who you support in the election. And then Superman responds, are you serious? Which, I would think just about anybody would say. Because, does anybody really care who Superman would support in an election for president or whatever? Does it even matter? Do we even need to know that to understand this character? No, we don't. This is just injecting political wokeness for the sake of political wokeness. It has nothing to do with whether it's entertaining for the story or useful or anything. And here's some more. With Batman. Here we got Batman with Alfred, and he's like, what's bothering you, Alfred? And then Alfred goes, I'll tell you what's bothering me. Some nights, all I see is an old soldier helping a very rich man to leave his mansion at night in his expensive car to visit horrible beatings upon the poor people. That's not what we do, Alfred, isn't it? It might have been easier for you to just buy Gotham City. Instead, you scratch away at it every night. Impoverished people forced into crime or suborned by gangsters with not 1/100th of your own resources. So here we are now, we're talking that, Bruce Wayne is white and privileged, and he's attacking the underprivileged, so he's punching down, as the term would be, except he's not punching down, he's stopping criminals. Alfred calls them the poor people because they're not rich like Bruce is. But then again, most people aren't rich like Bruce is. Does that mean they're all criminals? I mean, I'm certainly not as rich as Bruce Wayne, not even close. But yet, I'm not going out there and committing crimes because of it. You see, this is what I'm talking about. All contexts are removed from things that used to be very clear. To have Alfred talking this way is absolutely ridiculous. Alfred would never say something like this to Bruce, at least not until now. But the woke politics went out. You can't punch down. The criminals are poor people, and you're a rich person. And though you're risking your life trying to stop them from hurting other poor people, that doesn't matter. You're rich and they're not. Therefore, you're in the wrong. You're a rich, white, privileged male, and you need to check it. I mean, by this standard, almost any superhero is an oppressor of some kind, which is exactly what they're trying to get across here on Batman. And then, of course, we have the most obvious and blatant political stuff you can see here, creating a new villain. And whose face is that? Come on, we all know. And, this is, again, just something else that is endemic in comics today is Trump derangement syndrome. A lot of these creators hate Trump, not because of what he's done or what he said. They just hate him. He hasn't done anything to hurt a lot of people, despite what they claim. He hasn't done things that have taken anybody's rights away, or he hasn't, forced people to live in poverty, or he hasn't, destroyed, the country. He hasn't done any of these things that they've all claimed would happen. I mean, hell, from the very day he got elected, they said the stock market was going to crash that very day, and instead it shot up. Everything has been the opposite of what they claimed would be under a Trump presidency. But yet, the derangement syndrome exists because Trump does not believe in wokeness. Trump is anti-wokeness, if anything, and that alone makes him the enemy. Thus, he must be made into a monster. You see, you can't not be a monster if you don't agree with wokeness. That's the premise of all this. And again, as I'm showing you this, it's stymieing me. Now I'm going to show you some comparisons where you're going to see how it is now versus how it used to be for certain characters. Here we got the most notable of them all. It's Superman. And this is from a very famous scene where Superman surrenders and gives up his American citizenship. He's being, he did something that he's, being chastised for, saying it could have been an international incident. And he goes, I realize that. And you're right, of course. It was foolish of me, which is why I intend to speak before the United Nations tomorrow and inform them that I am renouncing my U.S. citizenship. I'm tired of having my actions construed as instruments of U.S. policy. Truth, justice, and the American way is not enough anymore. The world's too small, too connected. Right there, his whole ethos, truth, justice, and the American way, and yet that's no good anymore. U.S. policy, standing up for what America supposedly, the ideals of what the American ideal is no longer any good. It's bad. And you need to be a citizen of the world, not just a citizen of your nation, not just a citizen of your state, but a citizen of the world. Because if you care about your nation, if you care about your people, but not all peoples, if you care about keeping your place good, but not trying to fix everything in the world, well, somehow you're a small-minded, myopic person. And that's exactly what they're trying to get across using, the most American of all heroes just about. And then here we are with Superman in the past. He goes, I wouldn't have it any other way. Dreams save us. Dreams lift us up and transform us. And on my soul, I swear, until my dream of a world where dignity, honor, and justice become the reality we all share, I'll never stop fighting, ever. And this is from a story, Action Comics number 775, called What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Here is Superman standing up for the very ideals of America, standing up for the promise of America. And yet here we are now, just with a scant 10 years or so later, and he was denigrating America. You see, this is how much it's changed. Here's another one, infamous. Captain America saying, "Hail Hydra." And we learned that Captain America had always secretly been a Nazi sleeper agent. All those stories for decades, since the 40s, the very famous cover of his first issue, punching Hitler in the face, should have had a little thought bubble on his head saying, "I'm sorry, mein Führer," according to this. This is what they're going to take the most American hero and turn him into the ugliest thing that they could think to make him, the very antithesis of everything he is about. And yet, this is how he used to be. You know, and we'll go through some of this here. The presidency is one of the most important jobs in the world. The holder of that office must represent the best interest of an entire nation. He must be ready to negotiate, to compromise 24 hours a day to preserve the republic at all costs. I understand this. I appreciate this. And I realize the need to work within such a framework. By the same token, I have worked and fought all my life for the growth and advancement of the American dream. And I believe that my duty to the dream would severely limit any abilities I might have to preserve the reality. We must all live in the real world, and sometimes that world can be pretty grim, but it is the dream, the hope, that makes the reality worth living. In the early 1940s, I made a personal pledge to uphold the dream, and as long as the dream remains even partially unfulfilled, I cannot abandon it. This man who spoke this was secretly a Nazi for decades. This is what they want you to believe. But again, you know, who is Captain America? He's Steve Rogers. White guy, blonde hair, blue eyes. Well, gee, that's a Nazi, isn't it? That's what Nazis are. So Captain America can be a Nazi because, you know, again, a lot of these woke-eratis, they hate America. They hate the American dream. They hate what America stands for. They hate the ideals. They hate the culture. You know, they hate everything about America and want to remake it. And the only way to remake it is to throw away everything that it used to be. So you can turn Superman from being someone who loves America to someone who renounces America. You can turn Captain America from being the ultimate symbol of the nation into the very antithesis of everything the nation stands for. This is what they do with woke politics. And now we're going to get into some more stuff where it goes even deeper into the more personal, not just the larger scheme of politics, but even into the personal. Here we got a scene with Spider-Man and Mockingbird. And Spider-Man goes, "I'm a little uncomfortable with all of this." With what? Well, doesn't it feel weird that we're only beating up Asian people? We're in Hong Kong. The bad guys are Asian. The good guys are Asian. Everyone here is Asian. I'm just used to beating up people of all races and creeds. That's how I do it in New York. This to me is like so stupid. You know, Spider-Man has fought Asian villains before. You know, he's never attacked somebody based on their race or their ethnicity. Yet here it is, they got him worried about it because, oh, I'm a white guy and I'm beating on Asian people. Never mind that these Asian people are criminals. And also never mind he's in a country where, you know, it's majority Asian people. So to like beat on someone who wasn't Asian would actually require some effort on your part to find them. You know, this is how ridiculous they get with this stuff. Injecting, you know, Spider-Man trying to infer he feels like a racist when he's doing absolutely nothing racist. But he's a white guy, and he's a white guy with power, and he's privileged, and he's blah, 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 all the wokerati stuff, all the woke politics stuff. Everything says that Spider-Man is, to beat up an Asian gang, criminals, is wrong for him to do that because he's white, which ironically, in my view, that's the real racism. Because you're saying a guy who's trying to stop a criminal can't stop a criminal because of due to the race of him and the criminal being different. That's kind of racist, buddy. That's definitely kind of racist. But, again, you can't make sense of these woke politics because they contradict themselves so often. And here's another little scene I like. This is one to sort of spotlight why it's wrong, in a way. We got Miles Morales, the newer Spider-Man, the what people would call the woke Spider-Man, and here he's with a friend, and he goes, "Why is this bothering you?" "I don't know, because who cares? I mean, I get it. Black Spider-Man. I don't want that. Want what? The qualification. You're losing me. I don't want to be the Black Spider-Man. I want to be Spider-Man." And see, right there, that's the thing. A lot of the wokeness is all about the qualifiers. How you identify, or how you are identified, or what your identity markers are, determines what you can do, what you can say, how you can react. It's all based on identity politics. And here he is kind of speaking out against that, which I liked that he said this. But again, had it been Peter Parker saying it, where if we say, they had the white Spider-Man and he said that would be racist somehow. But here it's a black guy saying it, so that's okay. But he really gets it. I don't want to be the Black Spider-Man. I want to be Spider-Man. And that's what readers throughout the decades have felt. This whole thing about inclusion and representation and making, having more heroes that look like people of certain ethnicities or genders or whatever, as if somehow they couldn't relate to the ones that already existed. Black people can't relate to Peter Parker because he's white. We got to give them a black Spider-Man so that they can relate and see themselves in it. Never mind that, Peter struggles with making the rent, with caring for a sick aunt, with, his trouble with girls, with his trouble on the job, with his, his sense of guilt over what happened to his uncle. These are all universal things anybody can feel and understand. We can all sympathize. We've all been there. I've had times where money was tight. I know what it's like to be hard up on the rent. I know what it's like to have relationship problems with your significant other. I understand these things. I didn't need Peter to be white to understand it, any more than I think a black person would need to be black to understand it. Anybody can understand these things. That's where the entertainment comes in. That's where the engagement that Kurt Busiek talked about at the start of all this, that's where it comes from. When you have these points that cross these lines of identity, that's where the engagement comes from. Not from forcing the identity into your face, saying, look, it's a black hero. Look, it's a woman hero. Look, look, look. Look, they look like you. That's not what brings the engagement. In fact, that turns off a lot of people way more than it will ever attract. It's those points in humanity where we all come together. We all know what it's like to lose a loved one. We all know what it's like to have, financial hardships. We all know what it's like to have responsibilities on us that we don't want to carry, and yet we have to carry them. These are all things we all know and feel and can understand and empathize with. And that is where engagement comes from. That is what does that. Not this, not the qualifiers. And then I'm going to get to one of the worst and most egregious ones that I've ever seen done. Here we got this scene of Iceman with his girlfriend. And they're getting ready to go out on a date. And she goes, "See you in an hour, Rick." And Iceman goes, "Unless we're attacked by aliens and she gets kidnapped to the far side of the cosmos." You're kidding, right, Iceman? Actually, that seems to happen to us X-folks all the time. You're not kidding? Don't be scared, Opal. I'd be there to rescue you anytime, anywhere, no matter what. I know, and I'm glad. Now, see, these are people who are obviously very much in love. Iceman is a character who's been around for 6 decades almost. And, he'd always had, relationships with women. He'd always, had, these types of moments with such characters until a few years ago. And then they did this. But what? Come on. What's happening? Bobby, you're gay. They said Iceman has always been gay. For 55 years, we have history of this character having relationships with women, being with women, sometimes being tortured by his relationship with how it was going with a woman, all these things. And they come out and say, well, you know what? All along, he was really gay. And, again, this isn't just the worst case of pandering that I've ever seen. It doesn't just desecrate the very core of this character. But I mean, think about what it says. All those years, all those relationships, with all those women, he was lying to them the entire time. He was a complete and total asshole, an irredeemable asshole who was lying to them about who he was and how he felt about them. But again, in the woke world, it doesn't matter that would be the case. That's irrelevant. The past history is irrelevant. We want a gay character, and therefore we're going to make him gay. And again, they did it not because it was a good story point or something that could be developed, or like there was stuff in the history that sort of suggested maybe there was something there. There was none of that there. They did this because they wanted a gay character, and they wanted a gay character with some validity behind it. A character, they want to piggyback off of the character's iconic status as a member of the X-Men. That's what this is. A lot of these changes you saw, like the female Thor, why couldn't she be a character that isn't Thor, but a female character with superpowers? Because Thor is a name. Thor is an icon. Everyone hears Thor and they know what that is. They want that validation. They want that instant gratification of being recognizable and iconic. Oh, let's get rid of Peter Parker and bring in Miles Morales, a black kid, and we'll call him Spider-Man. Let's get rid of Tony Stark, a white guy, and we'll bring in a black female teenager, Riri Williams, and just replace these icons with these characters that are all about the qualifiers. And we don't care if we're destroying legacies. We don't care if we're destroying icons. We don't care if we're destroying entertainment. What matters is the wokeness. We need to get people to see the wokeness and to believe the wokeness. You see, again, it's all about indoctrination. It's all about pushing the narrative, to push the agenda. The agenda is you have to be, you have to have more representation. But representation only matters in so much as if people care. Now, if you made a new character, say a new gay character, well, you could do that, but no one would really care. And you would have to spend years, maybe even decades, building that character up to get any kind of iconic status that you already have with a character like Iceman. And that's just too much work. That's just too difficult. So representation, but that's not really what it's about. It's about what it always is with activists, which is to hurt those they don't like. Doing this hurts, they believe, white guys, and especially in this case, heterosexual white guys. Replacing Spider-Man with a black teenager, that hurts white guys. Replacing Thor with a woman, that's hurt guys. You see, it's all about hurting the people you don't like, that group you don't care for. See, when they say we want to be inclusive, what a lot of cases, what that means is we want it non-white. We want to exclude white people. That's what we want to do. But we can't say that, because if we do, then you'll see us as bigots. So we'll call it inclusion instead. Never mind that what we're doing is actually erasing canonical history of 55 years of a character to make him gay, or using physical qualifiers to just remove a time-honored character like Iron Man or Spider-Man and replace them with somebody with certain qualifying identity markers that we feel are more important. This is what they do, and this is why it destroys the entertainment. It ruins it, because it doesn't just ruin the news stories they're doing now, but it's sort of, in a way, like I said, like with Iceman here, it sort of pisses all over the legacy of the character of the past. So all those past stories you were reading, oh yeah, he was always gay. You know, Captain America, all those stories of all his heroism for decades, oh yeah, he was always secretly a Nazi. You know, it just destroys the very foundations of these characters. You know, and that's really what wokeness is about deconstruction and destroying what exists so you can then remake it and remold it in the image you want it to be. And, you know, that's why making a new character for inclusion and diversity and representation is never good enough for these types. It's never good enough for the wokerati because they see it as that's not enough because the stuff I don't like still exists. And it's not about just having something that fits the bill of what I say I want. It's about erasing the past. It's about destroying what came before because what came before was quote unquote problematic and it must be removed. And then I got this little image here, which I think pretty much typifies exactly how the activist creators feel about the audience. You know, look at the people in the background and imagine those are the readers. Whoop-de-doo, rescued by the understudy Avengers. Where are the real ones? Man, the world's getting so politically correct these days. And then you got Sam Wilson, Captain America, the Falcon, who's now Captain America because he's got to have a black Captain America, can't have a white guy. Did you hear that? After we saved their lives, and then female Thor, let them be ungrateful. What does it matter? And I think that pretty much typifies exactly what comic book creators today feel about the established comic book audience, the one that has kept comics viable for 80 years. You know, they don't care what they think. You know, Busey talks about engagement and gripping the readers and gripping the audience. And yet this is truly what they feel about that audience. This is how they see that audience. And, you know, it really bespeaks to why it's so wrong in what they're doing because, again, this is never what entertainment was meant to be. This is not how entertainment is supposed to work. It's supposed to work the way Busiek told you. You tell these stories. You don't worry about being inoffensive. You just try to be gripping and engaging and draw their attention in. And you do that with the connective points that I mentioned, you know, things like, like making the rent, relationship problems, loss of a loved one, the time-honored universal morals that we all know and understand and are a part of us. They're a part of our culture, our heritage, our traditions. This is where the engagement will come from if you do it. But see, these people no longer believe in those things. They find those things to be bigoted. They find them to be racist, sexist, homophobic, etc., whatever isms can be applied. They find it to be problematic. Those things must go away and must be replaced with our woke politics. And that is what you're seeing. This is what they're doing. And, I really can't, get across strongly enough how detrimental that is to entertainment. Not just to comics, but all entertainment. I mean, again, we've seen it in the films, we've seen it in television, we've seen it in, lots of stuff. In sports, when they inject the wokeness, it fails. When they inject the wokeness, they only upset the audience. When they inject the wokeness, it does not sell. And none of that seems to matter to them. And that's what makes it so insidiously dangerous, because they no longer have to follow the rules that we've all agreed upon for what success is and for how it's supposed to work. For them, it doesn't matter if something sells. As long as I got it out there and pushed this agenda, and if I ticked off the group I hate, that's good enough. I mean, you need to only look at these people's timelines on their Twitter and Facebook, where they're not just, in between telling you, hey, go out and check out my latest work. It's, oh, yeah, Trump is a bigot and so his supporters are all a bunch of racists and, conservatives are scum and should all die. I hope they all get the C virus and die. I mean, I've seen this time and again, every time, You know, anyone who believes in borders is a xenophobe. This is what they say. This is what they do. So, you know, it isn't just a case of, you know, well, they're trying to tell an entertaining story using woke politics. No, no, no. The woke politics is what matters above entertainment. And that's the real problem. That's why it's so wrong. And, you know, as you're going to see here, this, you know, this is just the beginning. I'm going to bring up something else now for you, which to me is like the ultimate destination of all of this. It's where all this ultimately leads every time. Now, some of you may have already seen this. As you can see here, it's gotten quite a few number of votes already. But this is the trailer for the New Warriors comic that Marvel just put out, or is about to put out. This is the teaser trailer. This is what they're using in Busiek's own words to excite, engage, and reach you. This is what they thought was their best foot forward for these new warrior characters. And so we're going to take a look at this video, and I'm going to make my comments as we go along.
My name is Daniel Kibblesmith, and I am the writer of New Warriors #1. I got interested in the New Warriors later. I remember seeing them on the shelf when I was a kid, picking up comics in the 90s, and just feeling like they were too cool for me. Like I was intimidated by, you know, Night Thrasher who had a blade coming out of his wrist, you know.
Yeah, right there, just off the cuff. Here we got a guy saying he was intimidated by the characters of this book, and you're going to have this guy write them. I mean, you know, what? I mean, you know, that's like saying, hey, let me get you know, someone who's a KKK member to do a story on slavery, because I'm sure that would be a very fair-minded view of the topic.
Nova was really buff. They were all the edgy characters for the 90s, as the cover said. New Warriors, I thought, were really interesting characters because they occupy this really cool space. They're forever young, but they've now been around for 30 years. My editors on the previous books I'd done, like Loki and Black Panther versus Deadpool, asked if I'd be interested in doing a New Warriors tie-in that actually poses them as the authority figures in this.
Now, again, here we are, more wokeness. You can see it. You know, you've got, look at the, you saw the images before as they rode by, the ones of Firestar and Nemorita. Look at them here. You know, look at their shape. Look at Nemorita. You know, if it wasn't perhaps for her pursed lips, could you even tell that was a female character? And then you got Firestar, who, you know, had a very nice feminine figure, and here it's very much tamped down, even so much as to give her the wokeness, you know, horn-rimmed glasses style mask. I mean, her mask before was big and like a Mardi Gras mask, and now it's like they look like glasses that your, you know, librarian wears when she's telling you shh. You know, I mean, here we are, even to these characters are you know, this book is going to be focused on new characters supposedly, but here are the classics, and they can't even put them in the classic style. They got to update them into the wokeness of today.
This conflict instead of the rebels, and I really liked the tension of that. So because the New Warriors are the authority figures in this story, they have to be mentoring new warriors who are under 21.
Oh my God. And as you can see here, this is your ultimate destination of wokeness. Drink it in. This is where woke politics in entertainment inevitably leads. I mean, you know, is there anything here that looks remotely engaging to you? Is there anything here that looks remotely, you know, gripping with these characters? And, you know, make sure to take a good look at the heavy girl here on the right, because there's going to be something you're going to see here in a moment that will be very kind of telling, I think.
And subject to the laws that triggered the outlawed event. This new law is making it illegal to be a vigilante under the age of 21. The artist...
Just a quick side note here of how stupid that whole concept is. So if you're under 21 and a vigilante, it's illegal. But if you're over 21 and a vigilante, that's legal? Is that how it works? I mean, you know, how many Marvel stories in the past where heroes, you know, were vigilantes and they had to run when the law shows up, even after they've beaten the bad guy? I mean, how many times that happened to Spider-Man? He beats the bad guy and the cops show up and then they're shooting at him and trying to arrest him because he's a vigilante. He was over 21 when that happened, but hey, that doesn't matter. But now all of a sudden it matters. Now it's not about what you do, it's about your age. What? How does that even work? You know, this is just warmed over nonsense where they're trying to remake Civil War and, you know, the Mutant Registration Act when they did that storyline. It's now it's about the age rather than being a mutant or being super powered. It's about your age. It's just totally ridiculous. And again, just more identity politics. Now you got ageism going on.
On New Warriors #1 is Luciano Vecchio. He designed all of the new Warriors.
And here we go right here. Remember what I said about Heavyset Girl? Look at her here compared to that first shot. Do you notice a difference? Do you notice a change? And look at this lineup. What do you notice missing? Go on, take a guess. Did you guess white people? Yeah, exactly. We got a whole new team that's quote unquote diverse and inclusive because they have no white people. No white people in the group. That's what these wokeratis mean when they say inclusion, when they say diversity, when they say representation. This is what they mean. They mean remove the white folks.
And gave them costumes that felt as modern as the New Warriors costumes to sort of feel classic and instantly familiar. So the first character that we're introduced to is Trailblazer. She's a group home and foster kid who is volunteering at a senior center when this mysterious threat shows up and Night Thrasher runs to the rescue. And because she helps him, she ends up in the...
There we are again, folks. Take a look. What do you notice? Notice the difference?
crosshairs with this new outlawed law, and she inherited from her grandfather a magic backpack of divine origin. We picked the name Trailblazer because she's somebody who charges into action. She knows.
Yeah, I don't think anybody of her weight class is going to be leading the charge to anything. You know, again, but this is part of the wokerati. This is what they do. This is what you would call the fat acceptance movement, where we're healthy at any body type, except for the fact, you know, that 50% of people who are overweight are much more inclined to have heart attacks or strokes or, you know, things of that nature. Oh, but that doesn't matter. No. Someone who's carrying around 50 to 100 extra pounds. Oh no, they're just the same as a person who's completely toned and fit. Yeah, right.
That she can do some good with this, you know, mysterious gift that she's been given. Screen time is a internet kid taken to its sort of logical conclusion. As a youth, he was exposed to his grandfather's experimental internet gas, and that has
Oh my God, internet gas. Oh my God. Oh, I'm sorry. I had to stop there. That gets me every time. Internet gas. Jesus Lord Almighty. Oh my God. We truly are scraping the bottom of the barrel here, aren't we?
later. I remember seeing them on the shelf when I was a kid, picking up comics in the 90s, and just feeling like they were too cool for me. Like I was intimidated by, Night Thrasher had a blade coming out of his wrist. Nova was really ever used in a sort of restrictive sense. And because we're doing a story about teenage rebels, a lot of the names are about teens fighting against labels that are put on them. So with screen time, we liked the idea that he has infinite screen time. Snowflake and Safe Space are the twins, and their name.
You guys can't see this right now, but I am double face palming right now. This right here is peak wokeness. I mean, there's nowhere else to go. Snowflake and Safe Space. I mean, I guess like people say about the rock bands is I guess all the good names were taken, because that's all I can see with this is just, it almost makes me wonder if this isn't trolling. Like they're not trolling the wokeness itself. Like they've become so woke, they are now a parody of their own wokeness. Are they punking everybody with this? Are they trying to? Is this being done? Just out of spite to anyone not woke? No.
Names are very similar to screen time. It's this idea that these are terms that get thrown around on the internet that they don't see as derogatory, to take those words and kind of wear them as badges of honor. Safe Space is kind of a big bird.
Badges of honor. Well, then I look forward to the new members, Incel, Simp, and Cuck, because that's about where we're headed with this, I can suppose. And that's the only place left to go.
Sort of stereotypical jock. He can create force fields, but he can only trigger them if he's protecting somebody else.
Did you hear that? Safe Space is the stereotypical jock, a guy in a pink onelet with knee pads and pink earrings is the typical stereotypical jock. This has to be satire. This has to be, South Park couldn't have come up with something better than this.
Snowflake is non-binary and goes by they, them. Snowflake has the power.
Oh, God. So it's not his sister, it's his other, it's Safe Space's, what is it? Since they're twins, it's what their embryonic unit, their fellow embryonic unit. I mean, what would you call this? Again, it just totally, utterly ridiculous.
Power to generate individual crystallized snowflake-shaped shurikens. The connotations of the word snowflake in our culture right now are something fragile. And this is a character who is turning it into something sharp. Snowflake is the person who has the more offensive power, and Safe Space is the person who has the more defensive power. The idea was that they...
See, so again, once again, more wokeness. The woman, or I'm sorry, the other, the non-binary, has the offensive capabilities to attack, whereas the male only has defensive capabilities. And defensive capabilities don't even work for him, but only for those who he chooses to protect. So I'm wondering why he didn't throw some of that power on the like-dislike ratios here on this video, because he's falling down the job, Safe Space. Falling down the job, my friend.
They would mirror each other and complement each other. B-negative is the goth kid. When he was a baby, he got a rogue life-saving blood transfusion, we assume from Michael Morbius, and now he has a very similar look and very similar vampire powers.
And again, once again, total wokeness, magenta hair color, sides of the head shaved, even in the quote-unquote the dark character, the wokeness has to show through, even to the emo kid. It's you know, wokeness truly is it's more insidious of a parasite than the C virus.
B negative also is obviously a pun. It's a blood type, which is great for a vampire character, and it's also a proud ownership of the idea of having a bad attitude. I want the people who read our New Warriors to feel all of the excitement that they felt if they read the 90s one.
All the excitement that you felt if you read the 90s one. You know, I think, Matt, my friend, I think you don't have to fear in that, because that will never happen. You will not see anyone with the kind of excitement and engagement with your new Warriors that people had with the original New Warriors in the 1990s. That will never happen, my friend. I think that's a forlorn hope on your part.
We wanted to have big, colorful characters, personality clashes, romance, a diverse cast, which is something that the New Warriors titles have always strived to make a priority. Every new,
except the original Warriors didn't strive to make that a priority. It was more happenstance that there was a diverse cast. It wasn't planned. They didn't go, oh, we got to make sure we got X amount of this group and X amount of that group and X amount of this identity marker and X amount of that identity marker. They, you know, most of these characters, in fact, already existed before the New Warriors were even founded. Speedball, Nova, Namorita, Firestar, you know, Marvel Boy, who would later become Justice. All those characters had existed elsewhere before the New Warriors ever came about. The only truly new characters in the New Warriors were Night Thrasher and Silhouette. They were the only two who were new and had never been seen before. So, you know, diversity was not something that was focused on. It was something that was more happenstance. Just, hey, here are these characters. They're not in any teams right now. They're not hooked up in any other way. Let's throw them all together and make them a team because they're all kind of young heroes. That's what the focus was. Young heroes trying to find their way in a world that was changing at the time. That's what it was. You know, new heroes for a supposed new era. That's what it was to focus on. Not on diversity. Not on, oh, we got to have certain amount of identity markers of these groups in here. That was never what it was about. And that's why it was successful and why this travesty is doomed to fail.
Warriors comic has always felt like a reflection of the year that it came out. And I don't think we're worried about being dated. I think we're way more interested about it being now.
Yeah, I think not, my friend. I think not. We're not worried about being now. I think we're more worried about destroying everything that has come before. I think that's more what we should be concerned with, because that's exactly. But again, this right here, this is peak wokeness right here. You will never see anything more woke than this. I mean, my God, Snowflake and Safe Space. What more needs to be said? You know, they are memeing themselves at this point. It's, you know, and, you know, it's not just I who feels this way. If we now go down here through the comments, let's take a little spin into the comments section. You know, here you go. Just first comment I see here. Why hire a dude who is afraid of buff dudes and blades? What the hell is Marvel thinking? Why hire a weirdo like this to write comics in the first place? Is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke? It certainly would feel like one. And here's another one. This looks like what someone would write when trying to parody or make fun of social justice warriors. This can't be real. except I'm sure it is, because I don't think we're going to find that this is meant in any kind of parody type of way. They're not making fun of themselves or fun of their woke politics. This is them shoving their politics right in your face. Right in your face. Yeah, gentlemen, we no longer have a toilet paper shortage. Well, publishing this book is probably part of the reason why we have one, to be honest. You know, this is the worst thing, the worst idea and concepts I have ever seen. My 9-year-old could do better. I have no trouble believing that, Meg, that your 9-year-old could do better than this. All I heard was this soy boy saying how he was intimidated and that the old heroes were too cool for him. Naturally, he created heroes that are not intimidating and not cool. Marvel is dead to me. And, you know, I think that speaks to a lot of the established audience who have seen this. Again, we go right back up to the top here. We can see, look at that ratio, folks. Look at that ratio. 2.2 likes, 2.2 thousand likes to 63,000 dislikes. But will Marvel listen? I doubt it. Certainly the creators won't care, that's for sure. But then again, judging at what they've done here, I don't think they ever cared. So, you know, this to me, this is what's wrong. You know, you've just seen here exactly what is wrong. So, you know, this is what happens when wokeness takes over. This is what you ultimately will end up with. It's sad. And, you know, so few seem to even care. You know, but again, this is why the mainstream is dying. This is why the direct market is dying. This right here. They're showing you, they're exemplifying to you why it's dying. And they don't even care. But you know, it will have repercussions later on. It will, because you know we're starting to see a little of that right now, because I'm going to show you right here. Oh, what happened there? Oh, there it goes. Kickstarter, Demigod, written by Ron Mars. A trade collection of miniseries he wrote, I think, in the last couple years. $7,500 goal, and they're at $4,200 now, with 10 days to go. Oh, just got another backer. $4,264, 10 days to go to get to $7,500. Do you think he's going to make it? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. That's where your wokeness gets you. But others, such as Ethan Van Sciver. Here we got Cyberfrog, Unforgettable Tales 1 and 2, basically reprints of the first two Cyberfrog comics back in 1994, just with new covers and coloring. And here we got $126,594 and over 2,200 backers. This is the difference between wokeness and not wokeness. This is the difference between pushing political agenda versus pushing entertainment. This is what's missing. This is what you're seeing. I mean, this is real time. Real time. And just to end all this out, you know, with all this wokeness, you know, they talk about the inclusivity and the diversity and all that other stuff. And to me, you know, I've always known comics to be that way. Right here. The X-Men from 1988. Here's the team. You got people from all different ethnicities and all different, nationalities. You got a Russian, you got a Canadian, you got a British woman. You've got, half the team is women. The leader is an African American woman. Or actually, she's just an African. She may have emigrated to America, but she's an African of origin of Africa. So an African woman is the leader of the team. And in fact, the team even has more than half women, if you count Madeline Pryor, who was with the team at the time. And then after she goes, they bring in Jubilee. So the team is over half women. You got, so I mean, what more diversity could you hope for than this image right here of this cover? This is diversity, folks. This is inclusion, true diversity, true inclusion. Not the woke definitions that we're seeing, not them telling you, hey, this is what diversity is. It means to get rid of the white people. That's inclusion is to exclude the white crowd. That's their version of those words. But the true version, the actual dictionary definitions for diversity and inclusion, this is it right here. And this comic is over 30 years old. So we've had the diversity they cry for and the representation and the inclusivity. We've had it for decades in comic books. This isn't a new thing. This didn't start up in the last 5 years with their woke politic pushing. No. This has been around for a long, long time, and fans had no problems with any of this. They didn't have issues with it. They love these stories. These stories are beloved by the fans. But then this is when comics were about entertainment. This is when it was focusing on being engaging and gripping and entertaining, not about being social, educating, indoctrination of woke politics. And, that is what is killing the comic book industry today. So there you go, folks. I've made the case as much as I think I could make it for you. This is where it's all going wrong. Between we talked in our last one about the disrespect to the consumers by creators, who think that they aren't really the customers, and this, the injection of woke politics into everything, into all entertainment. It's destroying it. Again, we've talked about it, the movies, Terminator Dark Fate, Ghostbusters 2016, Charlie's Angels 2019, Last Jedi, all that injected woke politics in movies, and those movies failed. They injected into sports. They injected into, I think I saw a story about knitting. There was a knitting group that they injected, identity politics into, and people didn't like it. I mean, whenever you inject it into entertainment, you're going to destroy the whole purpose of entertainment. That is what woke politics is. It is the destruction of anything it touches. That's all it does. It has no other function. It has no other purpose, despite what those who peddle it will tell you. It's not about inclusivity. It's not about, representation. It's not about, diversity. It's not about any of that stuff that they tell you. It's simply to destroy what already exists, to destroy it so that it can fall apart, and then they can take it and remake it and remold it into their own image. Because that's what I think ultimately all wokeness is about. It's about molding society in the image to which you want it to have. Not the one that society wants or that society has built, but what you want it to be. I will make it in my image, in my politics. And that's what they do. That's the whole point of wokeness, to destroy whatever it touches. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing in the mainstream comic book industry today. That is what is going on. With the numbers, with the closing of the shops, with the books that won't sell, with all of it. There is nothing in there that is inclusive. There is nothing in there that is diversity. There is only destruction and divisiveness to keep people at odds and to destroy everything that came before, because that is the ultimate goal of wokeness, to destroy what came before and replace it with its own idolatry of worship of itself. And that's not going to fly. That is the reason. Wokeness is the reason we can't have nice things. So I think I'll just end with it with it on that and say thank you all for joining me here today. I hope I give you a little something to think about. I hope I gave you a few laughs, perhaps. You know, that you got some enjoyment out of that. And one place where wokeness doesn't apply is right here with us at Sequential Treasures. So make sure you go down there to those links in the description. You know, if you like great comic art from the past when entertainment was the goal, stop on by our art gallery. We got plenty of art from our bevy of talented comic artists who themselves know what entertainment is about and why it exists. And then, of course, make sure to stop by the Twitter page and follow me on Twitter, because you can keep up with all the happenings going on with Sequential Treasures and our artists there. And of course, as always, smash that subscription bell there, and you know, join up here so you can always get notified when we got new stuff going on. All right. Until next time, I'll see you soon.